You're watching TVC Breakfast. This time to take a look at stories making the headline in newspapers this morning. And joining me via Skype is Public Affairs Analyst and MD CEO Prewin Adekunle Akindeji. Good morning and thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning, Veronica.
All right, so we'll head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the Daily Times. Federal government lists 5 states, federal capital territory for WHO solidarity drug trials. To the leadership newspaper now, COVID-19, high expectations as President Muhammadu Buhari orders tests of Madagascar herbal remedy. Well, to the Daily Trust, Buhari orders importation of Madagascar COVID-19 herb. It will go through validation process, PTF. Plant grows in Nigeria. Lists Lagos, Federal Capital Territory, Ogun, Kaduna, Sokoto, Kanu for WHO drug trial. And finally, on the front page of the News Direct, COVID-19, federal government to use Nigerian airlines for evacuation. All right, Mr. Akindeji, let's look at the front page of the Daily Trust, talking about the president ordering the importation of the Madagascar COVID-19 herbal remedy, which a lot of persons, or this has rather raised mixed reactions amongst a lot of Nigerians who have said, what about Professor Maurice who talked about having some sort of remedy to COVID-19? Why are we not looking in that direction? Doesn't charity begin from home? Let's get your point of view with regards to this issue now.
All right, so thank you, Veronica, once again. First, it's a sense of good news that we get to hear that from the presidency and to know that there's hope and there's something to look forward to. I mean, there have been a lot of people, maybe a few, that have been out saying they have a solution for, or cure, as the case may be, for the coronavirus issue that we have at hand. Personally, I think this is not the time for us to start throwing jabs or blames or what have you. I think this is a time where collectively we need to look for what can solve the issue. So if the government has received or ordered for a test material from Madagascar, I think is welcome. And if we have people who have, I mean, in case of Prof, who have a claim or who have claimed to have a solution or a cure for this particular issue as well, I think the responsibility of NAFDAC maybe, or the people who are in that industry to take these resources or this and validate this claim. So either ways, I think that both can go concurrently. Whilst we have the quote and unquote already finished product, which we have people who have testified to the potency of that particular drug, we can also at the same time locally begin to see guys who have the same resources and make them go through the proper test. I'm not in any way in support to whether it has to be locally made drugs or the one that is imported. The most important thing is that we find a solution to this and the whole world can go back to normal. If there's anything like that.
Reacting in this manner, because you would recall that at the time of when there was HIV, some Dr. Balaka at the time also talked about having some treatment to HIV and AIDS at the time, and you saw the kind of reaction that we got. Isn't it time that we begin to look inwards for local, solutions to our problems?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm on the same page with these people. Like I did mention to you, I think that is the right thing. We are happy that we can even get to hear such news. We are happy that people are working. We are happy that our medical space or ecosystem is thinking to find a solution to this particular problem. However, we're at a point where we don't want to go back to history or begin to analyze why it was done, why it shouldn't be done, why it is not the ideal thing to do. I think that the whole world is calling for results at this time. If we're sure of what the prof has and it has gone through the regular processes that needs to, for validation and clinical trials, why not? But if we're still at the stage, and you and I know that things are very fast in Nigeria, so even when you present this medication, if tomorrow it is approved, it's going to take a lot of time for production to happen. So my point personally is that, yes, we may have not done well by not listening to our own people. And it's not the right way to go about, by the way. But we're at a point now where what we should be thinking about is how to reduce, and if there's a better word, how to cure, if there's a cure for this particular virus.
All right. Which is what I believe the government is looking at, how to, flatten the curve whichever way it can. And
Absolutely.
That is why it is ordering this herbal medication from Madagascar. But then again, it brings to mind what we are doing in terms of, because there are concerns rather that this drugs, when it gets to Nigeria, because the president has listed Lagos, Federal Capital Territory, Ogun, Kaduna, Sokoto and Kano for this drugs administration, and some are saying we did get to the right persons. These are the concerns being raised again. Would it get to the right persons if it gets to Nigeria?
So here lays my fears for our processes, and it's not just with coronavirus. It's generally with everything that we do. The conversation is on drug this time around. It was on palliative measure, monies and gifts that were supposed to be given out to people, and you hear a story out there, people saying that they did not receive anything. Now, so I'm hopeful that at this particular time, our government will be accountable, and that people will hold them accountable also for this particular. I mean, I would think that it would be barbaric for them to pick up this medication and then start to hold it when we have not even validated it. I mean, because I know that bringing it in from Madagascar doesn't mean that it will be directed. It will be used on people in the immediate. So it's probably going to go through a certain process as well. Get validated. Let's know the number of, maybe drugs that has been imported in, and then number of people that have been administered to, and then maybe we'll be able to track and be able to say this. And once this is validated, trust me, individuals and private organizations will go all the way to get it in the first instance, even if government is not going to do what they need to do.
All right, Adekunle Akindeji, thank you for speaking with us. It's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. Joining me via Skype is public affairs analyst and MD CEO Prewin, Adekunle Akindeji. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning, Veronica.
All right, we head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the Daily Times. Federal government lists 5 states, the Federal Capital Territory, for WHO Solidarity Drug Trials. And to the Leadership newspaper, COVID-19, high expectations as President Muhammadu Buhari orders test of Madagascar herbal remedy. To the Daily Trust, Buhari orders importation of Madagascar COVID-19 herb. It will go through validation process, PTF. Plant grows in Nigeria, lists Lagos, Federal Capital Territory, Ogun, Kaduna, Sokoto, Kano for WHO drug trial. NAFDAC approval key, NMA. And to the News Direct now, COVID-19. Federal government to use Nigerian airlines for evacuation. Adekunle, what you would notice across the papers so far in the fight against COVID-19 is the fact that government is making frantic efforts to see that it flattens the curve as much as possible, because we keep seeing a spike in numbers. Talk to us from what you have observed so far. How would you evaluate government's effort?
So, thank you again, Veronica. Across board, whether federal or state, largely enough, I think the government has tried to rise up to the occasion. And there's several reasons for that. I mean, you would agree with me. So this is one problem or one virus that has come to stay, where whether you're rich or you're poor, educated, non-educated, you're just prone to it. So the clamoring for finding a solution across board I suppose also has put pressure on government to make sure that the right thing is done. Outside a few, glitches here and there around dissemination of palliative measures and what have you, I think by and large, government has, for the first time, if I would say, responded very well. Some states have done better than others, but the fact that it is put on the front burner, and we can see effort being put in place to ensure that, as much as possible, the curves are flattened. As much as possible, people are educated around what needs to be known. Even in the workplace, you can see maybe 40–45% level of compliance across board, which I think in itself is not bad, knowing our personality as people. So for once, I give kudos to government. They can do better. I think that there are many things that has played, a negative to our side. The fact that we never have anything in plan. But having said all of that, I think that on this particular case, on this particular occasion, I would say kudos to government.
And you mentioned state governments, and that is where a lot of persons are having concerns, especially with regards to states seemingly doing their own thing and not, joining forces with the government, keying into the federal government's efforts, so to speak, if I may paint it that way. Is that, from your point of view, going to undermine the efforts being made so far by the government? And how critical is it for states to, act, be on the same level with regards to this issue and also key into government's effort?
Well, so in terms of policy, there are no definite documents that says that this is what you must follow as a state. But what we have seen that as chief security officer of the state, it's your responsibility as a governor to ensure that you look for a bespoke approach that will solve your issue. For example, a place like Lagos State has all sorts of dimension of people who stay in there, all sorts of locations. There are places where, there are places where self-distancing it's a mere. It's not just going to happen. So as a governor of that state, even if at the federal, there is a rule that says this is how you must engage people. The onus lies on you and the responsibility lies on the government or on the particular governor to then distill it into what works in that particular environment. So, I know that there are states who are not doing enough, and when you hear what some of the governors or the commissioners are saying, you begin to wonder if exactly they understand what COVID is all about. Having said that, I think that it should be decentralized the way it is. In terms of policy and engagement, the state can do that with government, it can be disbursed. But in terms of implementation of what works across states, as long as it follows the WHO policies, in the whole scheme of things, I still believe that it's important that states should look for what works for them individually, as long as they get results from it.
We see on the front page of one of the papers this morning talking about the bringing back returnees to Nigeria, and as we speak, the minister said that about 600 Nigerians have been, brought back to the country from Dubai and some other countries as we speak. But there are concerns about the timing of bringing in these people, especially with the rising number and with regards to every country that these people are coming from also have cases. Isn't that going to make it a complicating situation? Are we supposed to be doing this at this time?
Well, so it's a delicate balance. As a citizen of a particular country, you cannot be denied the opportunity to return back to your country. You still carry that passport, first and foremost. Secondly is that I don't think it's a problem. My only concern is that as government made enough provision that when these people are coming into the country, they are necessarily put in a place where they can be isolated, because that's where the issues are, or that's where the issue lies, where you are sure that a certain set of people then comes in and they are above the law, they are allowed to go back to their houses. If we're sure that the gaps are closed, as many people that opted to come back to their country or are clamoring to return back to whatever place I think government should allow that to happen. What we should not do is to leave a gap between when people come in and then doing the necessary things as per the requirements from WHO.
Now the concerns are about community spread, and WHO is saying that Africa could be the next epicenter for COVID-19 as time goes on. I wonder what approach you would expect Nigeria to begin to take at this point, seeing that we are at stage 3, as it has been reported at this time, to actually nip it in the bud and flatten the curve.
So first is the report is as a forecast by a model that has been done, and its numbers. You can model and forecast that ABC will happen, all things being equal. So when you look at the infrastructure that we have in the health space, or in terms of human resource that we have, you may begin to feel that we're going by those numbers and you can't negate it. But we're learning very fast. We've seen countries who have handled this situation very well. What I think our government should do is not to be bothered about the numbers, is to continue to do what we consider necessary and what we consider fit for purpose for our nation, our situation. And as we continue to do what we need to do, I believe that we'll get a positive result alongside. But if we have to go by what we currently have or what we had before all this issue came up, one would believe that it's going to ravage Africa and it's going to kill a lot of people, knowing that we don't have sophisticated resources and technology to be able to combat this issue.
All right, Adekunle Akindeji, thank you for speaking with us.